Thank you for listening to Depictions Media Radio. Welcome to Policy and Rights, the show about government policy and human rights. Welcome back to Policy and Rights here in Depictions Media Radio. I'm your host, Michael Clogs. Many parts of our world have been in distress for, in some cases, maybe up to a decade. In some of those cases, it has been due to war. In some cases, it's been due to lack of government responsibility, and in other cases just natural disasters, and in many cases it may have been a combination of all of those things. For instance, Syria, with their ongoing need for humanitarian effort is due to government attacks on people, as well as more recently an earthquake that has led to people fleeing the country and looking for shelter in other areas like Turkey or Greece. Another in North America, there is Haiti. And Haiti has been hit with many earthquakes. It has been subjected to a government that seemingly doesn't care about the people in general. There's a select population maybe that they care about, but for the most part, the country of Haiti has been in ruins ever since a earthquake very early in the 2000s, shortly after we had the turn of the century. They got hit with an earthquake, and it's been coming up ever since. They haven't been able to rebuild, and a lot of infrastructure has been for many years now non-existent. There's cholera, there's starvation, and a lot of people on this particular island country are in desperate need for humanitarian efforts. Which is kind of interesting because the country right next door to them that actually shares the island with them, the Dominican Republic, seems to be thriving. Back to Haiti. At the end of a bunch of press updates from the United Nations, from the President of the General Assembly, from some updates from the Secretary General, we'll hear from their representatives Pauline and Stefan as they give updates on what the UN is up to around the world. They will have a guest come on, and that guest is going to speak about Haiti specifically, and what their mission to Haiti revealed is actually going on, including starvation, rape, kidnappings, and other devastations caused by gang activity and things that here in other parts of the world where things are stable, we would think are horrendous. So let's move forward with UN updates.
Happy Friday. Happy St. Patrick's Day if you're celebrating. So I will start off, and then Stefan, obviously. Okay, and you'll likely hear from Stefan about what the United Nations and partners are doing to support countries impacted by Cyclone Freddy. But just to highlight that President Koroshi has said that he stands with all those affected by the cyclone in Malawi, Mozambique, and Madagascar. He extends his personal thoughts and condolences and commends those providing much-needed relief and support. Turning to the Commission on the Status of Women, as you know, they're expected to wrap up work today with an agreed conclusions document. And you might have seen the President's remarks yesterday. It was in a tweet giving support to that process and urging authors to remember that the decisions that they make in those documents will actually have real impact to women and to girls outside of the negotiation room. The President has been outspoken about the use of technology to help women and girls, including to stop violence against women and girls. And you will recall that he organized an event last week about the use of technology, and it was a conversation. He included member states, UN officials, business and civil society representatives, as well as New York City Mayor's Office to End Domestic Violence and Gender-Based Violence. And it was an opportunity to discuss what more could be done and also to help survivors. And I had put out a press release from that with some of the main ideas, and I'll include that link to that press release with today's notes if useful. Turning to the UN Water Conference, since we last spoke on Wednesday, the list of speakers for the general debate portion of the conference has been put out, and I'll include that link with my notes as well. As you might have seen, there are 187 inscribed to that list right now. That includes member states, regional groups, civil society organizations. And I've been asked about the opening in terms of who will participate in the opening. As noted, because who speaks in the opening is part of a resolution, a GA resolution. So as noted in that resolution, the opening statements will be made by the presidents of the conference, the Secretary General, the President of the General Assembly, the President of ECOSOC, as Secretary General of the conference, and Chair of UN Water. And that is stipulated in Resolution 75/212 on page 90 of that document. And I had said that in my notes on Wednesday, but I'll resend that if useful today. Now, looking to the week ahead, as you know, it's going to be very busy. On Monday, 20th of March at 10 a.m., President Chaba Koroshi will address the opening of the 95th session of the International Civil Service Commission. Around noon on Monday, the President will also take part virtually in CUNY, that's the City University of New York, SDG 6 Research and Innovation Marathon Relay. And this is a speaking engagement, and it's part of New York City's Water Week. Monday is also Nowruz, so as is typically done on Nowruz, on that International Day, there's an annual commemoration that is organized by member states, and that event will be held at 3 p.m. on Monday in Conference Room 2. Then on Tuesday, 21st of March, the General Assembly will hold a plenary meeting to commemorate the International Day for the Elimination of Racial Discrimination. That's in the GA Hall at 11 a.m. And please note the start time, it's at 11 a.m., not at 10 a.m. The theme for 2023 is the urgency of combating racism and racial discrimination 75 years after the adoption of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And this is aligned with the organization's global campaign to celebrate the 75th anniversary of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. So who will take part? In addition to President Koroshi and Secretary General Antonio Guterres, we expect participation from New York City Mayor Eric Adams, Assistant Secretary General for Human Rights Ilse Brans-Keches, and Professor Vern Albert Shepard, who is the chairperson of the Committee on the Elimination of Racial Discrimination. So again, that's Tuesday, 21st, and that is the International Day for the Elimination of Racial Discrimination. Then, Tuesday afternoon, the President will speak to the 6th UN Special Thematic Session on Water and Disasters. That starts at 3 p.m. in the trusteeship. And then on Wednesday, 22nd of March, as you know, at 9 a.m. is the beginning of the UN Water Conference. And then from Wednesday through Friday, the President's going to be focused on that. So all his events will be bilaterals and speaking engagements related to the UN Water Conference. And the UN Water Conference will then wrap up on Friday, the 24th. The final plenary starts at 3 p.m. And then, of course, in addition to everything I mentioned, you have the 15 mandated processes. There's 15 left out of 16, so member states will also be working on that, and they'll have their own meetings related to that. I know you're all very busy looking at your screens, but do you have any questions for me? Yep. Okay.
Yeah, Paulina, thank you. I know there's a lot of news today. On the water conference on Monday, do you have a list of UN agency or UN affiliated personnel who are speaking?
So you are talking not about the UN Water Conference. You're talking about the CUNY, that water week.
Yeah.
The marathon. You know what? I can send you the link that I have for it.
Okay.
I don't know what other UN
And the
entities
conference
are taking
here?
And so the UN Water Conference, that will start on Wednesday.
Right.
I have the list of speaker for the general
Goes
debate
22
portion
to
of that.
26, correct?
From 22nd, 23rd, 24th.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so Wednesday through Friday.
And do you have other agency officials who are coming?
So the list of speakers,
Yeah?
at the moment, as I mentioned, let me look in my notes. To quote Stefan, if you don't if you don't remember what I'm saying, how can I? I messed that line up.
Yeah,
he delivers
you
it
can read
better.
that one out.
He delivers it better. Sorry, I'm looking. Okay, there. So right now on the list of speakers, there are 187 member states, regional groups, and civil society organizations that are currently inscribed. So from Wednesday to Friday, 187 are expected. So you should expect basically a mini GA taking place from Wednesday through Friday.
And other speakers like IAEA or?
They're all on the list. So
They're all on the list.
Yeah, it's on the
Okay.
public list. Organizations, entities are on there.
Thank you.
Sure,
Thank you.
no problem.
Sorry, that public list is available, is it? Because
It's
in the website you gave us yesterday, we couldn't find it. We couldn't find anything, and we couldn't find any media contacts for anyone. No phone numbers for anyone to call about this. I know it's not your office, but whoever's the press person for the water conference, can they please not be anonymous and come forward? And, I've done some digging with the spokesman's office, and we've emailed various people, and no one replies.
Okay.
I mean, if you're having a big conference and the reporters are trying to find out what's going on, if no one replies to our emails or phone calls, it's not a great start.
Especially a mini GA.
Okay, I understand. So as I said, James, and I think you came in maybe a minute or two late. Since we spoke on Wednesday, the list of speakers has been put out, so that is publicly available, and I'll share that link with you. If you are having,
Water site?
I'll in my notes,
Okay.
in what I sent out, and then
I'm sorry, I missed everything you said, so I was upstairs broadcasting, so apologies. Have you given the President of the General Assembly's reaction to the ICC arrest warrant for the President of the Russian Federation, Vladimir Putin? What is the PGA's reaction?
the president does not, he doesn't oversee the ICC. It's
Absolutely not, but he's an important figure, and this is a very important development in the war in Ukraine. One assumes he has a view on the arrest warrant of, the fact that the head of state of a permanent member of the United Nations is now a wanted man.
The president absolutely has his own views. The president, as he has stated many times, is the president of the General Assembly, and he oversees and represents every single member state that is in there, right, including Russia in this case. ICC is a separate entity. The president does not have any oversight into the ICC. Yes, I'm sure he has his own personal opinions, but in terms of his official opinion as the president of the General Assembly, obviously Russia is a part of the GA.
And what is his legal position on?
Can I follow up on
Okay,
that?
hold on just one side. Let James finish,
Yeah.
and then how about we'll do a little triangle.
I mean,
that way.
now that he is a wanted man, would the President of the General Assembly agree to meet President Putin if an occasion arose? I mean, or is he now a persona non grata as far as the PGA's office is concerned?
Russia is a member of the UN General Assembly, and that has not changed and will not change unless Security Council GA take other forms. As the president of the General Assembly, President Chaba Koroshi represents all member states within the General Assembly. The president, President Koroshi, I know would have, and I think remains willing to speak to President Putin, should he want that. Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, back to the water conference there. Is there any contemplated document, outcome, a resolution, or
Right.
any equivalent?
Sure. So in terms of what is going to come out of this conference, yes, there is a summary that is being done by the PGA's office, and that is something that is mandated in that modalities resolution that I had mentioned, that lists specifically who has to appear, for example, in the opening of the conference. So also in there, member states all agreed and said the PGA's office is going to put out a summary report. But the more interesting and the result that will have the more impact are all these commitments, these actions that member state and partners, organizations are coming out and saying, we're going to do this or we've done this. And there's also a link to the website where I think there was a press conference on Wednesday and they said, I don't remember the exact number, but there's hundreds of these commitments already posted on there. I can include that link as well with my notes. And then after the conference, they're coming up with a follow-up mechanism to make sure that these commitments are actually being seen through. And this is part of the water agenda that they want to take forward, water action agenda, so that the conference isn't just a one-off and then it's done and forgotten. So this is just the start of this process that hopefully will transform how we look at water, how we deal with water, what we do to make it sustainable. Okay. Pam, I think you had another question for me.
Thank you. Thank you, Paulina. The Rome Statute that establishes the ICC, Article 2 says, establishes the relationship between the UN and the ICC and mandates an address by the ICC to the GA. Mm-hmm. Is there any chance of moving that up? I mean, of having that moment in time? There is a relationship, and if you can get something from the PGA for us, that would be helpful. And if there's any chance of having a GA meeting or anything else for that matter, Security Council.
So you're absolutely right that there is a relationship. However, the ICC is independent of the General Assembly, and the President's role ends within the General Assembly. It doesn't bleed over to the ICC. In terms of scheduling, I don't know of any plans to move that up, the annual briefing that you've talked about. I can follow up to see if they have anything planned. And the last question you asked me, again. All right, if you remember. I don't want to omit you, James, but is there anyone? Nope, James?
Okay. Yes, sorry, it's back to the ICC and President Putin. Clearly, in the past, President Putin has been involved in diplomacy with regard to many issues, coming here to the UN General Assembly High-Level Week in New York, meeting President Biden in Geneva, for example. One assumes his travel is going to be somewhat curtailed by the fact he's a wanted man by the International Criminal Court. Is the President of the General Assembly worried that this could affect diplomacy to end the war in Ukraine?
I think that's a question for speculation. That's not something, again, the President of the General Assembly, his boundaries, if I can call them, end within the General Assembly. There's always issue about a diplomat or a delegate or someone who might have trouble getting visas or something like that. That is for the Secretariat. That is not something that the General Assembly deals with. So I would ask you to perhaps ask Stefan that very same question.
I was planning to.
Excellent. Pam, if I can, the other question that you asked me was whether there is a meeting, would the President want to have a meeting on this topic? Yeah. That's what you had asked me for. And so my response to that would be, as you know, it's up to member states to come forward and say that they want a meeting on a specific issue. So obviously, if a member state says that they want to discuss this in the General Assembly, I know that the President would do that. The President's door is always open.
Thank you.
All right. Let me see if there's anything in the chat. There is not. Thanks very much, everyone. Oh, no, please go ahead.
So the 20th anniversary of the Iraq War is coming. So in retrospect and in light of the ongoing conflict and instability in Iraq, can you comment on the significance of this coming anniversary and what it means for the United Nations? Thank you.
You know what? I think it's a good question for you to ask of Stefan. I can try to come up with a few lines from the president's personal perspective on that. Yeah. All right, everyone. Have a great weekend.
Have a good weekend.
Thank you. And there's Stefan.
Have a great week.
Who's left?
Behind that, not me.
All right. Good afternoon. There will be guests after me. It'll be Tarek Talama, the Acting Director of Operations and Advocacy for the Office of the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs. He will be joined by Osnat Lubrani, the Acting Director of UN Women's Geneva Office, at head of the Humanitarian Section, and Dominic McSorley, the Humanitarian Ambassador of Concern Worldwide. They're here to talk to you about their just concluded visit to Haiti. I have a statement on the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. The Secretary General strongly condemns the launch of yet another ballistic missile of intercontinental range by the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. The Secretary General reiterates his call on the Democratic People's Republic of Korea to immediately desist from taking any further destabilizing action, to fully comply with its international obligations under all relevant Security Council resolutions, and to resume dialogue leading to sustainable peace and the complete and verifiable denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. This afternoon at 3 o'clock, there will be a Security Council meeting on the maintenance of peace and security in Ukraine. Martin Griffiths will brief on behalf of the Humanitarian Affairs Office, and he will do so by video conference. We'll share those remarks with you as much as we can. I just want to flag for the record that Johanna Wernetka, the Special Coordinator for Lebanon, and Jean-Pierre Lacroix, the head of the Peace Operations Department, briefed Council yesterday on the implications of Resolution 1701 in a closed session. Ms. Wernetka spoke about the impact of the presidential vacuum that is approaching its 5th month in Lebanon and how it is contributing to the paralysis of state institution, and reiterated our commitment to continue standing by Lebanon and its people. Quick update from Tropical Cyclone Freddy. Our colleagues tell us that in Malawi, search and rescue operations are continuing. Yesterday, 442 people were rescued as floodwaters begin to subside. Relief efforts are expanding and focusing on reaching displaced people. In Chikwawa, one of the districts with the highest number of displaced people, the World Food Programme and its partners have distributed super cereal, which is a blend of corn and soy, to all displacement sites. Similar efforts are underway in other districts. However, some areas remain cut off due to the extremely challenging conditions. Aid workers are mobilizing air transport and boats to ship supplies in locations that cannot be accessed by road. Our humanitarian colleagues also tell us that they're concerned by the risks of cholera spreading in flood-impacted areas. UNICEF and its partners are working to clean latrines in schools that are serving as shelters in Blantyre, and will also install water storage bladders to provide safe drinking water. Mozambique, our team there is working closely with the authorities to provide aid to over 49,000 people displaced and to access areas that remain isolated by flood water. Cholera is also spreading, and there's not enough water disinfection supplies to support containment activities to control the outbreak. Yesterday, allocations of $10 million by the Central Emergency Fund will help address some of the gaps in response to flood, cholera, and general support following the cyclone. However, more funds are urgently needed. Turning to another humanitarian disaster in Turkey, floodwaters have now inundated camps housing people displaced by last month's earthquake. As of yesterday, 2.3 million were sheltering in temporary settlements, with 1.6 million of them in informal sites. Many camps lack access to clean water, sanitation and hygiene facilities, and overcrowding is a major concern. Access to education is also a problem for nearly 4 million children, of whom 350,000 are refugees and migrants. We and our partners have now set up 87 temporary learning sites for more than 6,000 children in Gaziantep, Hatay, and Kahramanmaraş. Agencies and partners have reached more than 520,000 people with water, sanitation, and hygiene assistance. About 45,000 people have received health and nutrition assistance. Meanwhile, UN disaster and coordination teams are continuing to work with Turkish authorities on the relief. In Syria, nearly 900 trucks now have been carried aid from UN agencies through the three crossing points from southern Turkey into Syria. We and our partners also continue to scale up efforts to help millions of people impacted by the earthquake. And as a reminder, in northwest Syria, more than 100,000 people were internally displaced on the 6th. In the past 10 days, we have also run vaccination campaigns in different parts of Syria. Just to flag that in South Sudan, the UN peacekeeping mission there reported today a tragic incident around Jebel Mele in South Sudan in which 11 children lost their lives and one was injured. It's a accident involving unexploded ordnances, which is a great risk in many conflict and post-conflict areas. The mission says that the incident of Jebel Mele was reported yesterday through the UN Mine Action Service. Coordination with medical organizations is ongoing and government offices as well. Just to flag, and we again often talk about lack of funding for humanitarian operations. In Afghanistan, due to lack of funds, WFP today said it has been forced to drastically reduce critical life-saving assistance in March to millions of vulnerable Afghans. In March, at least 4 million people will receive just half of what they need to get by. This is due to the most difficult time of the year. This is, in fact, the most difficult time of the year for rural families, as food stocks have run out before the next harvest, and already vulnerable Afghans are just emerging at yet another freezing winter. WFP warned that the country is at the highest risk of famine in a quarter of a century. 1 in 2 families is in crisis coping mode in order to survive. WFP urgently needs $93 million to assist 13 million people and $800 million for the next 6 months. There's been generous donations from donors, but we need more. And UNICEF says today that 10 million children in Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger are in dire need of humanitarian assistance, largely as a result of conflict in the region. Some of the armed groups that operate across vast swaths of these 3 countries employ tactics including blockading towns, villages, and sabotaging water networks. As we've mentioned several times, the crisis in Central Sahel remains chronically underfunded. UNICEF has appealed for $473 million. And in Peru, Cyclone Yaku has brought heavy rains and flooding to the country. Our humanitarian colleagues tell us that 40% of the provinces are under emergency, and 30,000 people have been impacted since January. Our team there, led by resident coordinator Igor Garafulic, is coordinating with the Peruvian authorities to support our response efforts. Following an assessment, a cash transfer of emergency project will begin in Piura, the most impacted region, to assist with nutrition with people. And just want to flag that in Geneva today, an event organized on the margins of the Human Rights Council, the UN Special Representative of Violence Against Children, Najat Malamjid, made a strong call on the urgent need to ensure a safe, inclusive, and empowering digital environment for all children, leaving no one behind. She said that 1 in 3 internet users are children. They're connecting in greater numbers at younger ages. The risk of harm to children in the digital environment are emerging quickly and spreading rapidly. A press release is being issued by her office. Today is St. Patrick's Day. It is. We have 3 more people, member states who've paid up their budget dues. I would add that Ireland already has. They did not wait for March 17th. We say thank you to our friends in Bahrain and Kyrgyzstan. 4 more. Bahrain, Kyrgyzstan, and Qatar The fourth one is, I think, the only country within the UN that has three official capitals, each for a separate branch of government. South Africa, exactly. And the capitals are Pretoria, Cape Town, and what's the judicial capital? Bloemfontein. Judicial capital of South Africa. Yeah. Okay. James.
Yeah, okay. So you've long stressed the need for accountability for what's happened in Ukraine. What is the Secretary-General's reaction to the ICC arrest warrants announced in the last hour or so, which include an arrest warrant for the President of the Russian Federation, Vladimir Putin?
As we've said many times before here, the International Criminal Court is independent of the Secretariat. We do not comment on their actions.
But does it have any impact in the way the UN operates with regard to the President of Russia? For example, if President Putin wanted to visit any UN headquarters, whether it was in Geneva, Vienna, New York, would he be permitted to enter? Will the Secretary-General still talk or meet with President Putin?
I don't want to answer hypothetical questions because, as you know, issues of travel involve others. We will continue, as a general rule, the Secretary General will speak to whomever he needs to speak in order to deal with the issues in front of him.
Does he, though, fear that this is a threat to diplomacy? Because President Putin is clearly the person who started the war in Ukraine. One might assume that you need President Putin to bring the war to an end. One can't see, or I can't see, President Putin being allowed to come by the host country, the US, to the UN General Assembly High-Level Week. I can't see how you could foresee another summit between President Biden and President Putin, as we saw in Geneva. Is this a threat, this arrest warrant, to the diplomacy that you're working so hard for?
As I said, and this applies across the board, the Secretary General will always speak to whomever he needs to speak to in order to advance our work.
But lots of other people won't be able to speak to President Putin.
I can only speak for him. Deji and then Joe.
Let's just speak for. Let you. You can just speak for Secretary General on this. Since the ICC has issued the warrants for President Putin, will this affect the Secretary General's decision to meet or to talk with Mr. Putin?
As I said to James, as a rule of thumb across the board, Secretaries General will speak to whomever they need to speak to advance the issues that are on their desks.
Regardless, there's the warrant or not.
Joe and then Pam.
Yes, on North Korea, you did read out a statement about the launching of the ICBM, but there was also an ARIA formula meeting this morning that attempted to link the human rights violations of North Korea with international peace and security and denuclearization. So I'm wondering if the Secretary General would agree with that proposition that international peace and security and the human rights violations are linked together and integrated and need to be considered together.
Well, let me put it this way. First of all, the Secretary General regularly reports on this human rights situation in DPRK, and you can check all of his reports, and I think they're pretty thorough. I'm not going to comment on what was said. I didn't follow the ARIA meeting. There are three pillars to the UN's work: peace and security, human rights, and development. And as with any stool, you need to consider all three, because otherwise it won't stand. Pam, then Michelle, then Benno, and then I'll go.
Thank you, Steph. One more crack at the ICC. There is the relationship with the UN, and the ICC is mandated to address the UN, and there's part of the Rome Statute establishes the relationship. 123 countries now are committed to arrest or and turn over Vladimir Putin if he travels to them, including Rome, where several UN offices are. What is your sense of if Putin wanted to come to the UN, or if Putin wanted to go to one of the ICC signatory, Rome Statute signatory countries, what would the UN position be? And does the Secretary General not have any comment on accountability on this in this regard? Thank you.
The Secretary General has spoken out about accountability, and I would refer you to what he said in the past. I'm not going to speculate about specific situations. The International Criminal Court and the UN Secretariat are separate institutions with separate mandates. There is no, and I will leave it at that. I appreciate you taking another crack. I fear Benno, and then Michelle. Sorry, I can barely see her in her bright green.
Ukraine grain deal expires tomorrow. Russia has said again today that it's extending it for 60 days. What happens now?
We very much hope that the initiative will continue. The ships will continue to flow, and I will leave it at that for the time being.
So it just goes on for 60 days and we see what happens?
I just said we very much hope that the ships will continue to flow, and that we will continue to work towards the integrity and the functionality of the initiative.
I mean, if Russia's extending it and the other parties want it to continue, then it continues, right?
Benno,
follow up.
I'm not sure how to quote a shoulder shrug.
There must be an emoji for shoulder shrug. I'd like to see an emoji in a Reuters story. Yeah.
Just a follow-up to Michelle. You said yesterday the talks are ongoing. Can you still say that?
I think what I said, and hopefully I'm quoting myself correctly, discussions are ongoing. I mean, conversations are being had in various permutations at various levels. We continue to very much hope that we will see this continue, as we've underscored the criticality of it.
Discussions ongoing means there's no definite decision, right?
No. You're trying to get me to use very precise language in a blurry situation.
Okay, then I have an actual question and not a follow-up. The Russian Foreign Ministry already said about the ICC's decision that they don't have a meaning for Moscow because the ICC is not supported by Russia. In general now, does the Secretary General support the work of the International Criminal Court and its decisions?
We have spoken about that before, and I will also underscore that the ICC and the UN are separate institutions with separate mandates.
But still, does the SG support...
I would refer you to what I've said in the past on this. Yes, ma'am. No, you're not ma'am. I could use many words for you, Stefano, but not ma'am.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So the 20th anniversary of the Iraq War is coming, and the Secretary General also addressed the ongoing conflict and instability in Iraq when he visited there earlier this month. And so, can you comment on the significance of this anniversary and what it means for the United Nations? Thank you.
I mean, the anniversary is an anniversary. I think our focus is not so much on marking an anniversary of what was a very important moment in the history of the United Nations. Our focus now and continues, and which has been really since that in the last 20 years, is on supporting the people in Iraq towards the continued reconstruction of their country, continued reconstruction of their democratic institutions, and for the stability and a better future for all Iraqi people. Stefano.
Thank you, Stefan. Follow up on ICC. Well, actually, I don't think it's a coincidence that just yesterday in Geneva, the commission that was established by the Human Rights Council, it went on the specific on this children deportation or abduction. And the ICC today, for one understand, this is the main reason why they issued a warrant for President Putin, because for them, he's behind this children abduction. So I asked this question, and other colleague asked before, what the Secretary General think about exactly this issue, if children have been deported or not from Ukraine to Russia.
I think on that we've had the Human Rights High Commissioner, we've had others in the UN speak to the Security Council on that, Rosemary DiCarlo, and I would refer you back to our position on that.
No, and my favorite question is, because I heard also what DiCarlo and others say in the past, that there is a concern and there was an investigation on it. So it looks like that that warrant was issued is for a concrete.
I have no.
So what is the reaction of the Secretary General about this?
The reaction of the Secretary General on what the ICC did today? I think I've said it a number of times. You talk of the issue of children, we've expressed our concern, and I would refer you to what's already. I would refer you to what we've already said on that issue. Dawn.
Syria question. The Wall Street Journal reported earlier this week that some Arab nations are looking to normalize relationship with Syrian President Bashar al-Assad. It appears that the earthquake and the humanitarian aid that's needed in Syria is kind of accelerating this process. So I'm wondering what the Secretary General thinks about this normalizing ties with Assad, given that it doesn't appear that accountability is going to be factored into this equation, and in the context of what happened today with the ICC and President Putin. When this happens, what does he think about, I want to be careful what I say here, but we have accountability in one part of the world and then perhaps in another part of the world, maybe.
Well, again, on the issue of accountability, I would refer you to what I've said in the past and what the Secretary General said in the past. Our feeling on the earthquake is that, and when we're talking about Syria, a country that is in the midst of a conflict where there are government-controlled areas and areas not controlled by the government, it is an opportunity to depoliticize the humanitarian operations. And we would call on all member states to support the people, the men and women and children in Syria, without any politicization of the aid. We also hope that these natural disasters can be an opportunity to redouble the efforts to find a political solution. Is what is happening in Syria. That the parties within Syria, the parties who have from outside who have an influence, can use this moment to move forward together and with the support of our special envoy on Syria to bring people back to the table, to find the political solution that's needed. We have seen in the past natural disasters be kind of sparks or accelerator to finding political solutions to areas that have been in conflict for a long time. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, you got it. My question is with regards to a developing story from earlier this week. Myanmar has recently sent a team to Bangladesh to observe the Rohingya refugee camps over a new pilot program that they've introduced for repatriation. According to this program, Bangladesh is hoping to send approximately about 1,000 Rohingyas back to Myanmar. Just wanted to know if the Secretary General could comment on that.
Our position is this, is one to back where we back the High Commissioner for Refugees, and for them, it is clear, and they've stated clearly that the conditions existing in Rakhine State are currently not conducive to a sustainable return of Rohingya refugees. Every refugee has a right of return to their home country, but no refugee should ever be forced to do so. People should be able to return on their own accord in dignity in a manner that is sustainable. We've heard of this pilot program, but I can tell you that UNHCR is not involved in this pilot program.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Let me go to Ms. Lederer here.
Thank you, Steph. Are we going to, on the Black Sea Grain Initiative, are we going to get a statement or something tomorrow on the status of the deal?
We would like to be able to inform you with something over the weekend. That may be very late Saturday night here in New York because the clock really ends Saturday night. So do stay tuned for something on your personal electronic devices.
And secondly, on the DPRK, does the UN have any staff at all in the country, or are you trying to get any staff into the country?
Always rather have some international presence where we've had it, but currently there is no UN international staff in the DPRK.
Is there national staff?
I will check. I will check on that. Dawn, then Deji.
Thanks. Just a follow-up on Syria. Again, back to this article. There's nothing in here that even mentions accountability for Assad. These talks are saying that these Arab countries are willing to give him money for the earthquake in exchange for Assad agreeing that he would engage with Syrian political opposition, accept Arab troops to protect refugees, crack down on illicit drug smuggling. Is there anything that the Secretary General can do to highlight, like, hey, what about accountability?
I think we have spoken on the issue of accountability when it comes to Syria, and our position is not has not changed. Deji.
My Black Sea Grain Initiative question has been asked by Edie, so I'm going to ask you the question I asked yesterday. What's the position of the UN on the use of marijuana?
I forgot to check, which maybe gives
please
you an idea of what's going on in my own mind.
Okay.
All right. Good afternoon. Thanks for those of you who stayed in the room. Today we are joined by Mr. Tarek Talamha, the Acting Director of the Operations and Advocacy Division of the UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs. To his right is Ms. Osnat Lubrani. She's the Acting Director at the UN Women's Geneva Office and head of its humanitarian section. And to our far left is Mr. Dominic McSorley, the Humanitarian Ambassador of Concern Worldwide. They've recently wrapped up a visit to Haiti, and they will make short remarks and then take some of your questions. Maybe we can wait for some of our guests to settle in their seats. All right, Tarek, if you'd like to go ahead, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
No, thank you. Is it on now? Okay, thank you. Osnat and Dominic and myself, along with many other UN agencies and NGOs, we were together to Haiti. Specifically, I was with UNFPA, UN Women, UNICEF, with Dominic representing Concern and the World Vision. The purpose of our mission was mainly to focus on two things. The first one, with many things happening globally and many crises, this mission actually meant to highlight and bring more visibility to the situation in Haiti. But the other purpose was to look operationally on the capacity of the humanitarian community on the ground and see if there are things we need to do beside what is really happening. During our mission, we met with many diverse groups, including the Prime Minister and senior officials, besides some people from the civil society, the UN community, the NGOs. But also we met some of the groups which they have influence on some of the gangs. The humanitarian situation in Haiti is really dire. I'm not saying this to compare with others, but comparing the situation and how much it has deteriorated in Haiti is of a big concern. For example, we have 5.2 million people who are in need of humanitarian assistance. Out of this 5.2, the humanitarian community is aiming to target 3 million. And that's with around a humanitarian appeal of over $700 million. Unfortunately, until now, out of the 700 million, only 108 million has been secured. It's a population which almost half of the population are facing food insecurity, but also 5% of the children in the country are really in a severe malnutrition situation, which actually of a big concern. The people which we talked to actually said they are not living. They are saying we are surviving or we are in a coping mechanism, and that's really represents partially what we know. But the real story in the ground is worse than what we thought. I mean, my colleagues who went to meet some of the women who been raped many times and they are being with kids told us very emotional but also very saddened story about what they are going through. I think it's very important to keep with many things happening in the globe, and the focus is in many contexts, is not to leave Haiti to face this alone. I think it's time for all of us to focus more on what is really happening there. And this is the reason why we are here, is to give more visibility and more advocacy on the situation there. I think the solution in Haiti is not per se humanitarian. I mean, the humanitarian community is dealing with some of the symptoms. The people in Haiti need three things. They need peace, security, and protection. And I really highlight the word protection. I mean, if we look at the figures, just 1 week before we been in Haiti, 136 people killed in 3 days. And if you look at the numbers of people, women have been raped since the beginning of the year, 93 women. And we know these numbers are not the actual ones. I mean, we know these only the reported ones. I think there are a lot of competing needs in the country. Cholera, malnutrition, and food insecurity may be what we have seen in the media. But from this mission, if I come with one thing to highlight, there are 3 priorities need to be addressed altogether. The first one is about the access of the population there to protection. It's just I'm trying to find the right word, because when you are hearing about women being raped or children being kidnapped or attacks against hospitals and schools, and you hear it from the people who are really impacted, it really shows that protection is really a big concern in that country. The second thing is about access, and I'm not talking now about our access to the population. I'm talking about access of the population to the basic services. The gangs, and we are talking about more than 300 gangs are involved in this in Haiti. They are really occupying schools and hospitals. They are waiting for kids outside of the schools to kidnap them, and that's make a lot of the people hesitant to send their kids to schools. And the third one is about the security of the humanitarian workers and their protection, because we need to be accessing these communities and these people, and we are expecting that our people who are really doing this, the courageous people, mainly our national staff, who are really under a huge pressure, to be protected. Let me stop here and give the floor to Osnat and to Dominic to complement some of the issues.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, and good afternoon, everyone. I think Tarek has given you the gist of the situation and the purpose of our visit. I just want to share with you that overall, the basic message from everyone we met is that there is a general climate of fear, especially in Port-au-Prince, where in some areas people really live like they are under siege. So when we talk about the food insecurity, it's not just the lack of food, but it's because for the women, for example, to get out of the house to buy food, it's the danger of getting raped or getting killed, and that's true for families. The kidnappings, again, when you look at the trends, I mean, it used to be that you might be kidnapped on the street, but the new trend is that the kidnappers are entering people's houses and kidnapping them. The abuses against the population, and especially women and children, this includes recruitment of minors by gangs. We're now talking about child soldiers in Haiti that are being indoctrinated as at the age of as early as 8 years old. The murders, the brutality, beheadings and chopping and burning of bodies, and the attacks on women. I mean, I met, the story of every woman and of rape is just catastrophic. And the needs in terms of particularly psychosocial health is the only services that are available are those that are provided by the humanitarians through national NGOs, civil society organizations that are doing extremely important work, but much more needs to be done. It needs to be scaled up. And I want to say that the ask it's very important to highlight, as Tarek said, that it is possible to operate, and I think Dominic will speak about that, but to do that, it has become much more costly because of the deteriorating security and also because of inflation and the difficulty of operating. So our colleagues remain very committed to doing the work, but they require stronger support, and that's another message that we want to send to you today. I'll stop here, and perhaps Dominic can complement on other aspects.
Thanks, Hasnat, and thanks, Tariq, and thanks, everybody. And it's great to see young generation here as well, and I'll briefly talk about that. Look, I guess the real purpose of these missions is really to look at Haiti from the ground up. And Tariq and Hasnat have pointed out it is daunting to hear what we already know, but to listen and see the impact that this is having. But it's also an opportunity for us to look at the opportunity of what is happening. And I think we all really want to pay tribute to the courage and the commitment, particularly of the Haitian national staff that are working with the UN agencies, the national NGOs, the civil society. They are still going in there on a daily basis, right? And they are doing what they can to ensure that humanitarian assistance, to ensure that the levels of cholera, to ensure that protection and food security is being delivered. And it is being delivered, not always every day, but it is being delivered consistently. Not everywhere either, but that commitment is core. And I think there is a perception in saying, well, it's impossible to work there. And frankly, that is doing a real disservice to the people that are putting their lives on the line and delivering. And their message through us is we need to be supported even more. I think the thing is around the access, a lot of this discussion was around community acceptance. The starting point is getting acceptance from the community. And frankly, that does involve, there are no blueprints that we can just take in from other crises. It does involve starting at the community, being inclusive, integrating protection with many of our different components, working with civil society, local authorities, working with national NGOs, working with community-based organisations, engaging with gangs to ensure that they're aware of what we're doing, they're aware that we're non-political, and that they are also allowing this. And that is paying off and it's having results. And there is a group, the Access Working Group, that is pulling the UN and the NGOs together, that's developed a strategy how we can better implement that across many of the districts. And this is also having impact. And there's 97 missions, I think, were achieved in the UN into some of these really, really tough cities, Soleil, Martissan, Bel Air. These are districts within Port-au-Prince that are really, really hard. So success and learning from that is happening, and we're working together on that. And I think it's really important to say that. I just think we really appreciate the commitment for the donors that have stayed with Haiti and continue to stay with Haiti. But we are really urging that more come on board. Because frankly, the one thing we do not want to be doing is stopping the work we want to strengthen, and there are ways to strengthen that. I think the commitment from the NGO community, the national NGOs, is we're going to work better together, we're going to strengthen the coordination, we're going to build on that, and we're going to ensure that we are delivering as effectively. The reality is, Haiti is competing, as Tarek said, with many, many other crises. We have to be realistic about this. Haiti will probably not get the level of funding it deserves. So we're going to really work as effectively as we can to ensure that the funding that does come in. I just want to end with two things, and I mentioned about youth. Concern is one of the organisations among many that is working with the UN Peacebuilding Fund, which is supporting youth groups across 6 youth groups across these different districts within Haiti. I've been working on leadership, skills training, trauma. These groups have started connecting. They're crossing the barricades. If they can't go there physically, they're using Facebook and WhatsApp to talk to different youth groups across different lines. And they have formed now a network themselves. And they are asking to continue to be supported. We're trying to find links that the private sector and the academics to ensure that they can continue, because they are the future. And there is a big commitment within the humanitarian sector that these kind of initiatives need to be important. The last thing I'm going to say is today is St. Patrick's Day, and I'm not just saying that because it's a great day. I'm saying it because it's also marking 25 years of the peace agreement in Northern Ireland. And there was 3 key elements. And let's face it, Northern Ireland and Haiti is very different contexts. But 3 key elements: engagement of community, putting women into positions of peace negotiations, which formed the Women's Coalition, which became a signatory to the Good Friday Agreement, and external diplomatic, robust, continued engagement. And I think we as humanitarians, much as outside our control, but we will continue to advocate for many of these elements to be put in place.
Of course, please.
No, thank you, Dominic and Osnat, and I think you brought more reality to the big picture, which I tried. I just want to say, I mean, the humanitarian appeal this year is the largest since the earthquake, and that should give us a signal about how much the situation has deteriorated. The second thing I want to say, yes, people are really suffering there, but also they have aspiration. And they have a message which we are really carrying. Not all of them maybe that have this voice. And I think that's part of our advocacy, to speak to you and also to speak to some of the member states, that they have an aspiration and we have a moral obligation not to leave them alone. I mean, we cannot use the big and mega crisis happening around the world in order to overshadow what is happening in Haiti, because and I oversee almost all the crises globally, and I don't want to mix banana with orange about to compare one context with another context, but I wouldn't be wrong if I have said in the last maybe 1 year, what I have seen in Haiti is something I really did not see in many of the countries I have visited in the last year. It's a situation whereby people in other places who fighting, at least they have their narrative to fight about. This is a situation where people get in the street and get killed for no reason. So That's all from my side. Thank you. Yeah, Osman.
Just maybe to say two points that also I take away from this mission. One deep concern is that people are so insecure that Haiti is losing some of its best people because it's just so dangerous for families and for women and for children that people are looking to leave, and that's a big concern. And the other point is that as much as we woke up to how the trends are so negative, the message that we were also hearing is that as much as it's bad, it might get much worse. The feeling of people who know the situation, they are alarmed, and people that have lived there for many years, and they're saying it's not going to stop at this. It may be much worse, and that's a scary thought to leave this mission with. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Now we have some time to take some questions. Stefano?
Yes, thank you for this briefing. Unfortunately, we heard kind of the same briefing months before here about Haiti. Then the Secretary General, about 6 months ago, I believe, sent a letter to the Security Council saying that there was the need to send, not necessarily with the UN helmet, but a military mission force to protect people. That was months ago. The Security Council did pass resolution, but just for sanctioning the gangs or their leaders. I don't know how you can really sanction gang leaders, but that's another matter. So my question, you can see in this room there are not many journalists because they are busy covering other things. So actually, I would say that the people in Haiti are left alone. They've been failed. The Secretary General tried, but maybe didn't try hard enough. So I see your commitment. I can sense how you, practically after you visit, the situation for you is worse than what you expected. So you are not exactly diplomats because you're more humanitarian work there. So try not to be diplomat. What you will suggest to who can, in this case the Secretary General, maybe the head of a UN woman, but somebody can, because they attempt to find a solution, find the Canadian. A few months ago they would say Canada is ready to get in, but nothing happened. What should be done to don't leave these women, these children, these civilians alone, abandoned in this tragedy? It's a failed state. At the UN, there was responsibility to protect when a state is totally in a situation like this. So what's happening? Why nobody comes? What you will suggest to the Secretary General to do as a next move to save the people of Haiti?
We can all comment on that a bit.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. And I mean, as you rightly said, we are the humanitarian side of the house, and we kind of look at the things with different lenses and different scope. But in the context of Haiti, I don't think you can separate things from each other. I mean, we easily can come to this meeting and say we are dealing with the symptoms, but the root causes has to be dealt with at another level, which does not free us from our responsibility to be part of the bigger thinker about what needs to be done. I mean, I can conclude, and I'm not expert in Haiti. I never covered this country before, and I really kind of feel, I cannot dig down because I don't know the context very well. But I can say a few words. I can say maybe there was a history in Haiti about, the international presence there, and there are some kind of more calculation has to be done about how to do the business. But that should not make us over-censor ourselves about what needs to happen. I don't think with the current situation we have the right ingredients to break the cycle locally. I think there is a need for some engagement. I don't know, what kind of engagement is it about? Rethinking the engagement process, or is about deploying forces, or about doing something else. But the Haiti, everyone we have met there, they are looking at the international community to do something, right? And I think we need the other people who not, the ones who kind of, that's what they do, is to see what is the right modality for that. But I can say, and I hope I'm right and my colleagues would support me on that, with the 300 gangs and the level of fragmentation and the rift, the social rift has been created in the country, I don't think with all the attempts from the local people to try to come together, I don't think they are able to break the cycle. I think there is a need for engagement, either through the UN or through some member states to break the cycle of violence.
Maybe just to point out that, yes, and I think this is true with regard to Haiti, but also with regard to other crises where there isn't enough engagement on the or success from the political side, but and humanitarians on the ground are those that are left to deliver the services to not give up on the situation. And so I think that what our message is, and I support everything that Tarek said. Of course, we will advocate through our own systems for, revitalizing, and we are advocates for looking at solutions. But I think the message is that there is. We don't want it to be forgotten, because the sense is that sometimes, because it's so difficult and so hopeless, so let's just, and so we want to say it's not, there is good work happening there. And as Dominique said, there is room for supporting work through community engagement, through engagement of women's organizations, women leaders who do want and yearn for peace and who are engaged in such efforts. So not to let it all, not to put it to the side and wait for the political solutions to come. There is, and that's why it's so important to support us at this time. So I'll stop here.
I have nothing to add. You have exactly asked the right and the most challenging question. And as Tariq said at the beginning, the problem is it's a peace political. It's not a humanitarian solution to this. So there are negotiations going on. I don't think it's our job to say what that should look like. And that's, again, the peacekeeping forces that were there for many, many years did not leave the country in a position where it's very open to that being repeated. But as you rightly pointed out, it was a nuanced, specialised forces. It wasn't specifically asking. I think it's up to the international community to respond. I don't think the Security Council can sit on the fence and say, well, we're not sure. Something, they need to come back with suggestions, whether it's increased diplomacy, increased funding, increased support to the police. That's beyond the remit, but something needs to come back with some degree of clarity that includes, right, the views of the Haitians.
Just want to add something. I don't want to use word engagement because sometimes it's a very fluffy word, but I just want to say during this mission, I managed to meet some of the people who have influence on some of the most powerful gangs in order to reset the parameters and the expectations. And sorry if I'm going to say this publicly, I told them I really don't care if you keep killing each other. What we really care is about that the people are not be the victims of this. But at least we try to knock all the doors, and not without no reservations about delivering a message about at least from the humanitarian perspective, that protection of civilians comes first. No attack against the basic services, and let the people access these basic services without being harassed or being thinking. You hear stories about women prefer to stay home to deliver and die rather than going to the hospitals. And the third one, which usually, what the humanitarian community keep talk about, but I don't want to put it more important than the others, is about the safety and security of the humanitarian workers, because our life is not more important than their life. Yes, even I would argue and say we have more mitigation measures and we have more in place to protect us than more the civilians there. But at least this message, I managed to get it through to the most three powerful gangs leaders, of saying you can continue. I'm not seeking you now to have settle all your problems, but at least that's what we expect from you.
Please.
When the others are going to stop, we will stop. It's just a blame game.
Thank you. I'm Dawn Clancy with Pass Blue. I was actually going to ask you what the gangs are saying in response to that, but I guess you did have opportunity to meet with them on your mission. I guess my other question then is, it was mentioned that politically member states are sitting on the fence about getting involved, and I'm just wondering what your sense is of what that political why are they sitting on the fence? Like, what is making it difficult politically? And I know this is more humanitarian, but what's your sense of why politically it's been so difficult to find a solution to this? And then you also mentioned aspirations of the people of Haiti, and I was just wondering if you could talk a bit about what you hear from them, like what are they aspiring to besides security, safety, things that are obvious, but more personally, what are they aspiring to?
The one thing I think that in terms of the international community that I think we want to sort of dispel is that it's a failed state and it's so hopeless. And there's so many other emergencies. So you turn to somewhere else. And so I think the message is that there is interventions can make a difference, and that we must do it. And also, as I said, the situation now is so severe, but it's going to be. It can scale up, around the corner, and do we have to wait until that happens so that all of a sudden Haiti will make the headline? I mean, that is the big message here, and I think that not acting now means that we will have something more visible around the corner, and we don't want that to happen.
I can't speak on behalf of the member states. Look, there has been probably a long history of the challenges of peacekeeping forces, and it's not a single easy solution, frankly, right? And I think that's what we're saying. So, what the security and what that needs to look like is something that the Security Council and the member states need to look at in relation to that. But building the ground up in terms of trying to protect what is already there, in trying to ensure a greater cohesion around community, in trying to work with youth, education, in trying to ensure that mothers have basic human rights access to hospitals and this kind of thing, is critical for us to increase. Until that political solution is in place, there are various agreements out there, the 21st of December one, there are various initiatives out there. It's not that there aren't initiatives happening, but it's for others to comment on how successful they will be. The aspiration, frankly, of everybody that we meet is we want an ability to have a peaceful environment, to have a job, to be able to go out to the market, to have freedom. It's everybody's aspiration across the world, and it is no different.
Maybe on what we heard of on what people want, because that was the other aspect, So yes, of course, it's security. Is first and foremost, and I think that's what the people want. But meeting these young women and girls, survivors of rape. I mean, there was also. They spoke a lot about how they are. For me, it was so sad because they were so grateful for the support that they did receive, And so when we met with one of the organizations that brought some of these women together, they spoke about how psychologically, the support that they got to, build confidence. Some of them really with hollow eyes and trauma in their written on their faces, but they were so grateful that there was someone somewhere that could give them that support. Some of them were trained, livelihood. Some of them were supported to relocate to a safer place. That kind of support was greatly appreciated. So on a more granular level, this is the kind of support that's much needed to respond to what they want.
Yeah, I think two things my colleagues already highlighted. The spiral of violence in the community is not anymore ad hoc. It's becoming systematic, right? I'll give you an example. And a gang will come and knock at your door and saying, oh, you need to sign this document. This document means in the end of the month you have to pay this amount of money, right? And if you don't, we will come and take your kid. So it's not anymore a small 8 years, as we have seen other places, who are kind of being instrumentalized, and this is becoming a kind of a business, a livelihood opportunity where it's attracting people. Because this is a country, 60% of the population are in poverty. So I want to say, and this is why I'm saying there would be one day a missing opportunity. Member states and the political side has to engage now. I really believe we have a window between 6 to 8 months for a no return point, meaning what we really could accomplish now is going to cost us triple maybe later. So I really, it's very important thing, we act quickly on that. On the aspiration of the population, we as a human being come with a different level of expectations from life, where if you are in somewhere in the country, maybe you are wishing for the new iPhone or a new car. What these people are asking is just to say, I want to go to the market and I want to come back to my kids, which is really kind of a more make me sad. In this stage, that's the limit they want to, which is really kind of something, as I said, it's very sad.
Do you think that the solution could come from within? Like if outside the international community can't seem to figure out what to do or are unwilling in some way, could it come from within? Could it be, supporting these different groups that you mentioned, really beefing them up and, saying, okay, here, you can do this? And I don't mean to, I'm not trying to minimize the situation. I understand if somebody's standing in front of you going to kidnap your child or shoot you, you're going to be saying different things. But could you see it if the support was there, the solution coming from within?
One of the things has been, I was told that the Minister of Justice went publicly and told the people it's time to carry your gun because this is the only way you are going to protect yourself. Right, and I have to say this is really worrying because I really don't believe carrying more guns are gonna make it. But I can also understand why the people have reached a point of saying, I am gonna be killed. Let me at least try to do something to protect myself and my family. So that's kind of give me a clue about if a local solution can because if the people reach a point where they think the only way now is to carry more guns, that does not, or leave the country. I mean, we came in the plane. When we went to the plane, it was like 1/3 full. When we came back, it was fully full. I mean, the lady was sitting beside me and tried to talk to her. She was celebrating because she said she was waiting for this for 6-7 years to leave, giving it every way through smugglers, through other ways, in order to get to the U.S. So the good ones, the ones who are really kind of supposed to stay in the country, and we should encourage to stay in the country, are losing hope and leaving. So this is the reason why I said there is a cycle need to be, addressed. And I don't think, I mean, I'm not expert in Haiti and I cannot say much, but I don't think with the local context it can be come together. I think there is a need for some engagement.
I mean, just to add, I think, there are things in place. There are sanctions. The Canadians and the Americans have placed sanctions in there. And let's see, will they have an impact, particularly on the gangs and the leadership. But also there's, a lot of work being done at where are the guns coming from? And can we stop the flow of guns that is coming in to Haiti? So there's stuff happening outside the country that really needs to be looked at. So if you can cut off the gun supply, if you can cut off economic advantages within the thing, all of these things have a role. These things are in place, but much more needs to be done. So there's a lot of deep contextual analysis that will point to not just one solution, but to multiple areas that need to come in together. And I think the last thing I would say is there is no quick fix for Haiti, right? If we're looking at anything, whether it's rebuilding institutions, we are talking about over the next decade. So I think there needs to be, Tariq has talked about a new narrative for Haiti and a new vision. And I think that's really what you are proposing, that everybody can come behind through the international community and the humanitarians on the ground.
Thank you so much. Do we have any other questions? All right. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for...
Thank you for listening to Policy and Rights Today. I've been your host, Michael Clogs. And I want to say we should all be grateful for the stable government that we do live in. And along with that gratitude means that we do things like go vote whenever we can, whenever a vote comes up. Get involved in our communities to help keep our communities healthy, help keep our communities safe, and along with that, we as the citizens are what help keep our community stable. And get involved and share the love that we have in our hearts with all those who are around us in equal ways. Please do find that subscribe button wherever you may find it and get continued updates from us about what is happening in our global, local, and national communities. This show has been produced by Depictions Media. Please contact us at depictions.media for more information.